Welcome to Design Downtime, the podcast where we celebrate the joys of living a balanced creative life. I'm your host, Guy Siegel, a design director in Toronto, Canada, and I invite you to join me on this journey as we redefine what it means to be a successful design professional. Let's break free from the shackles of hustle culture and embrace the full spectrum of human experience, because life is too precious to be spent only in pursuit of productivity. Today, I'm excited to talk to Mike Perrotti. Mike is a product designer at Datadog living in Brooklyn with an assortment of plants and reptiles, a cat, and a loving partner who tolerates it all. He spends his weekends in his lush greenhouse by day and on dark, foggy dance floors by night. Before moving to New York in 2012, he studied art in Philadelphia, then fell sideways into UI design and front-end development. He later went on to become a major contributor to various design systems, including GitHub's Primer. Along the way, he developed a pattern of picking up hobbies and going completely and shamelessly overboard with them. His houseplant hobby snuck up on him and, predictably, spiraled into an obsession. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Guy. Nice to meet you. It's rare that somebody will let me just come on and talk about plants. Yeah, I heard about your show and I thought I have picked up so many little things I do outside of work through the years. I could have picked a multitude of topics, but my current thing is plants. I go through phases and sometimes the things stick and sometimes I kind of leave them behind. Like I went through a printmaking phase. I still do some printmaking, but not as much as I used to. So now I spend all my time doing stuff with my plants. So specifically, I focus mostly on tropicals. So things like philodendrons, anthuriums. I love a begonia, some monsteras, but I don't know. I feel like monsteras are a little oversaturated right now. I feel like every week there's a new bizarre form of monstera coming out that they're trying to charge $1,000 for. But yeah, in the bio it says like it snuck up on me. What happened was my therapist actually recommended, hey, your depression's really bad this year, like seasonal depression. Why don't you try some greenery? And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Like, how hard can a plant possibly be to take care of? Like, I have a gecko, a snake, a lizard. I feel like if I can make a arboreal gecko from an island off the coast of Australia survive in a Brooklyn apartment, surely I can deal with a plant. So I got one that I just thought looked pretty because I didn't know much about them at the time. And it was a Maranta, which is a type of calathea. They have really, really pretty leaves. And anybody who knows about plants heard me say calathea and thought, oh no, why did you make that your first plant? Because they are extremely fussy. They attract pests. I set myself up for heartbreak. So I killed that one and I was like, what? How did I kill this? I can keep all these other more advanced things alive, but not this one. And I was like, it was so pretty. I want to try it again. And I just kind of became stubborn. And then I eventually realized, oh, because you're trying to take on this complicated thing. Let's scale it back a little and try an easier philodendron. And then from there, as I was doing more research about the care and their natural environments, I was like, oh, I thought the lighting in my house was enough light for these plants, but no. Then I got grow lights, and then I was like, oh, if I can keep these alive, maybe I can like be bold and get some of the more expensive, fancy, rare plants. And that's when it just like blew up. And then right around that time, COVID hit. And not just me, like the entire world kind of had a little mini tulip mania over plants. And the same thing happened to me. I would just look forward to getting new shipments and unboxing them and having new plants and taking care of them. And then that same year, my landlord basically kicked everyone out of the building because I was the only one paying rent. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise because the next place I got had a backyard, or more like a patio. So then I was like, oh, well, this is a whole other realm for me to keep plants. I'm not limited to my Brooklyn apartment and getting as close to a window as possible. So yeah, it just kind of blew up, and it comes and goes in phases. And the nice thing is it does mesh well with keeping reptiles because My gecko, for example, he is from a tropical climate. He loves high humidity. And I converted his enclosure into something called a bioactive vivarium. So that's where it's kind of a self sustaining ecosystem. It's a big planted, beautiful terrarium looking thing. It has something living in it, though. It has my gecko. And then it has a bunch of teeny little bugs you can barely see. And the bugs are like the cleanup crew. They clean up all the any dead plant matter and, gecko poop. And then the gecko poop fertilizes everything. And then since I naturally have to keep it humid, it's like my cheat code for when I get like a really difficult orchid or a really difficult tropical plant that can't even survive in my little IKEA cabinet. It goes in there and it will thrive. So yeah, it worked out really well. And I've had to, at certain times, stop myself and be like, wait, you're treating this more like a collector thing where you are trying to just collect things because, I don't know, you like hold them in some level of status. Not status for myself, but like, ooh, I want that really rare, hard to get plant. Like for a while, I really wanted this thing called Monstera Thai Constellation. You've almost certainly seen them. They're like a regular Monstera, the leaves with the holes in them, but it's very speckly, and that's called variegation. It's very speckly, like whites, yellows, creams. And this plant used to be thousands of dollars. Sometimes you'd get lucky and find it for upper hundreds. And I was like, well, that's nice, but I'm not going to drop that much money on a plant. And the other nice thing about it is it's got stable variegation, which means that coloring is genetic. So as it grows, it will stay variegated. Some plants, they will start out that way, and then as they grow, they will lose that coloring, and it's hard to get back. You can maybe get it back if you trim it or prune it, but yeah, so I didn't get that, but I really, really wanted it, and it was like the it plant for a while. And I was like, wait, do I want this because it's pretty or because it's the it plant? And then nowadays, there's a company in Florida called Costa Farms. They got them into tissue culture, which is how you can mass produce plants. And now you could pick one up at Walmart for like $25. So I got mine right when they got into tissue culture. I didn't pay $25, but I didn't pay more than 100. So I was noticing like, oh, you seem to be getting hung up on the preciousness and rarity of these things. Don't be a collector. These are not baseball cards. These are not even records. These are like these beautiful things that you tend to and care for. And I started getting into plants for mental health reasons. And then if I feel like if I'm turning it into more of a collection, yeah, I feel like if I don't have the right mindset towards it, like if I don't treat it as an outlet and something I do, then it kind of loses the point. It just feels not as much fun. So yeah, that's like a little background.
Usually, I like to start with the origin story. How did you get into it? But you already touched on that.
Yes, I did touch on that.
I'm actually curious to go a bit further back before getting into plants. Was greenery and trees and plants and nature, was that part of your world?
A little bit. I mean, I'm very, very much a city boy, but even since I was a kid, like when I was growing up, my dad's side of the family had a trailer out like basically in the middle of the woods in Pennsylvania. And we would go out there. Like we lived in West Orange, which is a suburb of New York, like right next to Newark. So even though it's not like full on city, it's still very urban. So when I was growing up, there'd be weekends where we'd go to the trailer in Pennsylvania, and it was just like the lushest, greenest, most naturey thing. I can still smell it now. Like I love the smell. That's another thing in my gecko vivarium. When I open it up and smell it, I can smell that like peaty, organic, earthy smell, and it just is so soothing. So yeah, back then I would do that. And over the summers, even before I got into plants, I would go camping with my friends along the Delaware River. And then I discovered that they have gay campgrounds in Pennsylvania, which is a real hell of a time. So I got even more into that. And then I used to be a lot more into yoga, so I'd go on yoga retreats upstate. And I love nature. I find it like it's a really pleasant place for me. And I love rural stuff, but I'm also just such a city boy. I couldn't constantly be surrounded by nature. I don't know. Maybe I could someday, but now I like being able to go to Broadway and art shows and raves and whatnot. So, yeah, I have had a connection with nature, but as I said, total Yankee city boy.
So, what made you pick that first plant you got?
I forget which plant store. Oh, it's probably the one by my house in Bed-Stuy. But I just went into a plant store. I looked around and I saw this plant that had this really beautiful foliage. So a Maranta, also called a prayer plant. I got the green version too. There's usually you see them and it's like an oval shaped leaf. And then there are like through the leaf, there's these stripes. It's like just a very beautiful pattern. So usually those stripes are a crimson red, but this one, it was like a light neon green, and it almost looked fake. And they almost are a little bit velvety too. Like it's not glossy. It looked like a fake plant almost. It just, the patterning was so gorgeous. And I was like, whoa, this is a thing that nature just made. I don't know the evolutionary reasoning for the way the foliage looks, but I was just like blown away by it. And I was like, why do people like flowers? Foliage is so much nicer. So yeah, I was just really into the foliage and I thought, oh, it would be cool to have this in my house rather than like a boring snake plant or a pure green pothos.
Your direction has been foliage rather than focusing on flowers or.
Yeah, flowers, they seem a lot more complicated with the nutrients. Also, they need way more light than I could ever provide. So I live on the bottom floor of a brownstone in Brooklyn. There's two windows in the front and two tiny windows in the back in our bedroom. I get no natural light. So in which is not good because that means I have to use a lot of grow lights. I have like a grow light budget. I don't even pay my electric, my landlord does, but I just feel like it's so wasteful to use all this energy to grow plants. It feels like I'm hurting the environment to mimic the environment in my house. Flowers just would not work for me. My dad is a very talented gardener and grower, and he does all the fancy like nutrients and stuff to get things to produce fruit or flowers. But I was just like, no, I just want the tropical stuff. It also, I think, besides the fact that it's like it grows in the understory and it can deal with lower light, most of these plants, like most philodendrons, will grow very easily. You don't need to do that much for them. And it just kind of fits in with the like interior design aesthetic of my apartment. And these plants are things I can put in my reptile enclosures and they will work well. So yeah, I think that's why I picked those. And now that I mentioned the like how they fit in with my aesthetic, it also made me remember that a few years ago, as I was like a few years into my plant journey, I realized there were parallels between designing UI and or like systems and UI and keeping plants. So like I know that sounds wild and it doesn't actually sound possible, but like in my house, if I wanted to, I could grow whatever I wanted, make it gorgeous, and not gorgeous, make it like a really healthy plants. But then I would have to have like this ugly blue red lighting and like plasticky grow tents. My apartment might get humidity and moldy. So it's like, yeah, you can. So that would be like if you built a website with straight up HTML, no CSS. It's like, yeah, it's performant, it's accessible, all that good stuff. But then it's like, yeah, but it looks like crap. What I have to do is I have to work with the harsh environment of my apartment, which is kind of like working in the harsh environment of browsers, and be like, all right, here's the tools available to us. I can't just like take like I have some anthuriums, which are these beautiful South American plants with like this silvery veining and they're like velvety leaves. I would love to just put that right on my coffee table and it would look beautiful, but it would also die. So it's like if you go too far in the other direction, you're like, I'm just going to place things where they look cute. those plants are probably going to die, especially in the winter when my humidity gets down to like 10%. So it's like, all right, I have to figure out how to cluster these things so that it makes the watering easier. That's another thing, maintenance. I have a whole system in the winter of like where I put things because I did a count 2 weeks ago. And I have 159 plants. So watering all of those and caring for all of those, especially because there's a lot of divas in that mix, it's a lot. So I have to like plan out where I put things based on their needs. Lighting is the biggest thing. Like, as I said, I have a budget for how many watts I will let myself have with grow lights. So I'm like, all right, these highly variegated plants are going to get clustered right here under my like super strong grow light. And then things like orchids and calatheas and certain begonias. I'm like, you guys can deal with the lower lighting. You're going to go here. Or a pothos or something. I'm like, yeah, that shady corner over there, that's fine for you. So I have to like balance out what's going to look good, what's going to be maintainable, and most importantly, how are the plants going to survive in that? So it's kind of like it's a push and pull. I can't just enforce whatever I want on them, but I also don't want to optimize my apartment for plants and have it look like a, grow house or something.
You mentioned that you don't want this to become another collection. How do you keep yourself from going, over that boundary?
A little bit of it is the shame of like, if I get a shipment of a plant and my boyfriend's like, how much is that plant? So, or like, I live with my boyfriend. He has to live there too. And I think when I bring everything in from outside for the summer, there's just a look on his face of like, oh my God, why is this living room a jungle now? He does like it, but at first he's like, oh my God, I forgot that there was this much greenery. So there's a little bit of shame, but also it's very easy to just remind myself, you're not doing this for the material part of it. Like, you're not doing this just to have like some really hot looking plants. You're doing this because it feels really good to take care of something and watch it grow. Like, oh, the satisfaction I get when I see a new leaf unfurling, it's just so incredible because it's I know that like I only had a part in making that happen. The plant did all the work, but especially when I have a very challenging plant, like there are some times where I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? This plant is such a diva. But when I can get those to behave well, I'm just like, oh, I feel so good about myself. The foliage is beautiful. It's also a slightly meditative time for me. Like it used to be every Thursday night, my routine would be, all right, we're stopping work at a reasonable hour tonight, and we're going to spend a few hours doing plant stuff, mostly watering and nutrients and whatnot. So I just remind myself, like, you're in this more for the care and cultivation and less for the having things. So another thing that helps with that is, like I was saying earlier, I kind of have to plan my setup and think how things will work together. I have an IKEA cabinet that I converted into a greenhouse. I installed some fans, lights, a humidity system, and I'm finding that it's just as much fun to take what I already have, the plants I already have, and make nice terrariums for them or just do things to make them look nice, but with the same constraints of their health needs in mind. So like I have some begonias have blown up. They've gotten so big, they're outgrowing their terrariums. But it was really fun to like make the little terrariums, and they look so pretty, especially when I remember to prune them. They look so nice, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's fun to have these little things. And then it's like, oh, I've created like this little self-sustaining environment. Like my begonias that I made terrariums for, they're in there because they just need so much humidity and they need such consistent conditions. So even though they are known to be very difficult diva plants, they just thrive once I set everything up. And as I said, it's just to watch something grow, to watch a leaf unfurl is so satisfying. My favorite leaf to watch unfurl or to grow and harden is an anthurium leaf because they start off really tiny, like an inch or two when they first come out and unfurl. And then they're usually like a deep, deep red, and the veining is very subtle. And every day you'll see it get a little bigger and a little greener, and the veining becomes more prominent. Like I really want to do what's it called? Stop motion. I guess it's, yeah, stop motion, where you take like a photo every few seconds. I really want to do one of those of an anthurium growing. I think it would be gorgeous, but I just haven't like taken the time to do the setup. But yeah, it's just like, it's so pretty to watch. And I worked at home for 8 years. So that's another reason why my collection got so big. But I worked at home for 8 years, and sometimes I would just stop what I was doing because I'd get stressed out and move over into the living room and just look into my cabinet, see what's going on. And it's like, yeah, this is the part I like. I like creating this environment and having like this kind of zen thing to watch and grow with.
So you said you had 159 plants at home.
I do, yes.
And that is quite a complex system of maintenance, of what can be with what, lighting and all that. What sort of considerations go into getting your 160th plant? How many Excel spreadsheets do you have to consult to know what to get?
I actually started making a spreadsheet a few years ago, and then halfway through I was like, I don't want to do this. This is dumb. Like, it was like, no, I should not have to make an Excel spreadsheet for a hobby. Actually, I do love a spreadsheet, but I was just like, so if I was to get 160th plant, there's no plans right now. It's a balance of factors. It's like, is there a space that is available? Usually the answer would be no. Like, is there a place I can put this? Like, why do I want this 160th plant? Like, what makes this so special? How expensive is it? And what's the care like? So yeah, it's mostly about space, cost, and how much attention it's going to need. I did get a new plant recently. I've slightly, like, I wouldn't say sworn off plants, but I have been trying to curb my buying. And recently I got my top wish list plant. It's been on my list for, I don't know, since like the beginning, probably since like 2020, 2021. And I had been waiting so long to get it because I was like, all right, let's hold off. Maybe it'll go into tissue culture. But this plant is notoriously difficult. Like, it will not go into tissue culture. It's called a Philodendron ilsamanii. It's from South America, but it's mostly like the grower who's best known for cultivating it is Kunzo. I forget his last name, but he's a Japanese plant person, and he's been producing them. And I saw that there's a nursery in Detroit, Rare Plant Fairy. She's been cultivating them as well. And she, like, if there's a plant that's about to be really hot, she's usually the one where you'll see it start to drop in price on her site. So I was like, oh, Rare Plant Fairy has them now. She's put out like a few in the past year. Like, over time, she's been putting them out. I'm like, I'm going to wait till it gets a little less expensive. The price dropped pretty drastically a few years ago. It used to be like almost $1,000 for a teeny tiny one. And it recently got down to like 400. And then I saw a really tiny one for 300. And I was like, all right, these are never going to go into tissue culture. I've wanted one for forever. I've read conflicting things. I've read they have stable variegation, but I've also read they have chimeric variegation. So I'm like, I think this will keep its variegation, but I'm not sure. I couldn't find chimeric variegation is where it can grow out, like, and just become all green. So I was like, all right, you've wanted this for years. It's the growing season, so it's a safe time to get it. However, it is a bit of a diva, mostly because it loves consistent conditions. And also, I was buying one on the cheap, so it was a teeny tiny baby, and those are even harder to care for. So I was like, all right, it's the growing season. You have space in your IKEA cabinet. You will have enough time to make sure it is in good condition. So I finally got that one, and I was like, okay, I have my top wish list plant. Like, are there other plants I want? Yeah, but do I need them? God, no. But the other thing I'll take into account is last year I built have you seen a vertical like green wall, like a plant wall? You've seen those before?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I built my own because as I was starting last like August, planning out, bringing everything back inside, I was like, I want to like go a little further with the presentation of these. Like I used to have them on like these little shelves. I was like, I want to do a green wall. I bet I could pull that off. So I did some research and I made one. And like over the winter, when I normally don't buy plants because my apartment is just hostile and they have to acclimate, but over the winter I would notice, oh, there's some spots in here that I could fill in, and I would go to a nursery and get like, a cheap $5 to $15 pothos to just stick in there to fill out that area. Because as I mentioned earlier, you have to plan things based on the lighting. And it's not that I didn't have enough plants to fill the space. I totally could have. It's just like there were spaces in the green wall that I didn't have anything that would fit there. So I'd think, what can handle these care requirements? And usually the things that can go in those empty spaces were cheaper. So it's about like, is there an aesthetic reason to add plants? And usually I can fill those spaces with the cheaper ones.
So, with so many plants in your apartment, how impossible is it for you to go on vacation or even in the future move out?
That's a very good question. So I do get a little stressed out when I'm on vacation. Not a lot, just a little. But the thing is, I had a hard enough time finding somebody who would come take care of my reptiles while I was on vacation. Like some places were just like, you want us to do what? But yeah, there's a pet care service in Brooklyn. They know who I am. They're like, oh, you're the lizard guy. And I'm like, yeah, yes, I'm the lizard guy, I guess. But yeah, so that is hard enough. And then I asked, there's this guy who runs a beautiful store in Brooklyn called Brooklyn Horticulture. I asked him, I was like, hey, do you know somebody who could like, I would pay them to come water my plants while I'm in Japan for 2 weeks. He's like, no, the only person I know only does Park Slope. I was like, okay. So I can't get anyone to come. So what I do is I just do my best before I leave to make sure they're set up. Most things, they don't even want to be watered. I'm rarely gone for more than 2 weeks. They don't even want to be watered that often. So I just make sure they're nice and watered. All my grow lights are on a timer, so I don't have to worry about that. Or if they're outside, the sun does its thing being the sun. But yeah, it's mostly the watering. And then there is a little system I have where it's these like tubes, it's the gravity feeds. So it's like these little PVC tubes. I just put a thing of water high up and then feed the tubes into the thirstier girls. Like my alocasias, they do not like to dry out. Well, most of them don't like to dry out. Or calatheas, some begonias. Yeah, so like certain things I'll be like, all right, you're going to get the tube. The rest of you, I'm just watering and hoping for the best. And then when I get home from vacation, one of the first things I do, I put down my suitcase, I run over to my IKEA cabinet, because that's where the diva girl, that's where the fancy ones are. I'm like, all right, let's see, what is the carnage? And I think I've figured it out, because the last few times hasn't really been that bad. The ones that usually suffer when I'm gone are the alocasias, because they like very consistent conditions. And I'm just like, all right, an alocasia lost a few leaves. But the other nice thing about those is they're tubers, so they grow from bulbs. And I think that's part of the reason why they come back so easily. Those and begonias, if I see those lose a bunch of leaves, I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'll just baby you for a little bit and you'll spring back to life. So yeah, it's stressful, but I just hope for the best. Because as a reminder, I'm like, this is something that should be bringing you joy and making you happy, not adding stress to your life.
Do your pets ever get to enjoy the plants? Do the worlds collide?
The worlds certainly collide for my gecko. So he has, as I described earlier, a bioactive vivarium, which requires plants. He gets some really nice plants in there. My bearded dragon likes it really dry, or pretty dry. So I don't really do cacti or succulents that much. She has one like non-spined cactus in there, but I'm just going to take it out. I just take it out and put it in the backyard for more sun over the summer. It just kind of sits there. It's not a whole big display presentation like it is for the gecko. My snake, I have not even attempted to plant in her enclosure because I know she'll just destroy it. And then I did try and switch I have a blue tongue skink, which is like, I call it a lizard burrito. It's like this big, fat, thick lizard with these little legs. I've tried planting in her enclosure before because they actually will. Some people get really fancy and they will grow little herb gardens and they let their blue tongue skink eat the herbs. So I tried that and she was just like, nah, I'm gonna wreck this. So those don't collide as much. My cat, I'm very lucky. My cat leaves my stuff alone. So there's a lot of plants that I just can't have in my cat's way because some of them are toxic to cats. So I have to think about that when I'm placing plants too. But thankfully, she will leave things alone unless it's like long grass like looking fronds. Like I have this thing called a ponytail palm. It looks like a bunch of blades of grass bursting out of a tree stump. And she just loves to chew on that. Or she'll just go and sniff it. So like I don't even know why she does it. She like chews it up and then I'll find it like little chewed leaves next to it. I'm like, you're not even eating it. What are you doing? So my cat loves to chew it, but she's just kind of like, oh, yep, these are here.
I'm assuming your plants take over multiple areas of your apartment.
No, I mostly condense them to my living room because, as I said, I do live with my boyfriend. So I'm like, I can't take over the entire apartment. So I have like the gecko vivarium is in my office, which is like I have a railroad style apartment. So the office is right off of the living room. So like the gecko vivarium's in there, but everything else, I have a plant wall by like in place of my non-working fireplace, like under the mantle. Then I've got the IKEA cabinet in the living room. I've got a little corner where the tall plants go next to a chair. It's a great little reading nook. And then there's a shelf above my couch. And then I have hanging baskets in my window. So it's like, this is the space you have to work with. You can't be expanding into the bedroom or the kitchen. I mean, because it's a railroad style apartment and we only have those two windows up front, it would be wasteful to have stuff in the kitchen or bathroom because there's no windows. I'd have to do grow lights. And then the bedroom, it's just like I've kind of like the living room is my space, and I feel like the bedroom is my boyfriend's space. It's like his crap is just all over there. So I'm like, you have the bedroom, do whatever you want. Let me just have the living room. So it's mostly confined to the living room.
Do you ever go out and experience other people's plants and vice versa, have people over? What's your relationship with the community of plant people?
Sadly, I don't know a lot of other plant people. So there's this one guy I know from like the music scene, Robert Valera. He is a very talented musician, but he's also really into frogs and plants. Like he's kind of living my dream. His job is that he goes to like big like restaurants, or he did a big installation in Vegas. He just does beautiful plant installations. So whenever I see him at a show, we'll be like, "Oh my god, we can nerd out about plants. Like we never get to do this." So I know him, and then I'm pretty friendly with the owner of Brooklyn Horticulture, which is a like plant studio, but also a plant store. Like last time there was an Ecuagenera sale. Ecuagenera is a grower from Ecuador. They do like pop-ups all over the world. And they're always, when they're in New York, they're always at Brooklyn Horticulture. And it was so rainy, I was waiting in line, and he came outside and he saw me and he just gave me a little nod of like, hey, want to cut the line? And I was like, oh my God, I feel like a plant celebrity. But other than that, I just will like talk to people online through Instagram, just like people who I've come across. Or like one of my friends moved to Portland recently and introduced me to one of his friends there who also has a snake, and he has a greenhouse, and I think he even works in plants. But he'll like post photos of his plants and we'll just talk a lot about them. I'll be like, oh my God, how did you get your Anthurium veitchii that gigantic? And how does it deal with the winter? So yeah, like there's a few people I talked to online. There's only two people I really know in person. Also, I try not to like, I don't really do the Instagram plant thing. Like that's a very popular thing. Like people will just have big Instagrams of plants and there's like plant influencers. And I'm just not a social media person. And I also find that that community can be not nearly as toxic and awful as the reptile people, but the plant, I'm just like, I don't really want to engage. It's just a lot of snobbery and weird opinions. So yeah, it's mostly those two people and then like a few randos I meet online who seem to have the same approach to it as I do.
So looking back, would you say your therapist's recommendation was that a good thing?
I think it was. Like I wasn't expecting it to be. I thought I'd be like, I'll be bored of this in a minute. Like I won't even care about this. So I think it was. The other thing that it helped with is the grow lights in the winter kind of act like a bonus sad lamp. So I used to have one of those seasonal affective disorder lamps on my desk. I was too embarrassed to use one when I was in an office, but I would use one in my house. And then I was like, wait, I already have like a 35-watt LED shining on me right now. And I do think like the past few years when I started to like bulk up my grow lights and the greenery in my living room, it has certainly helped with my mood. So like in the winter when it's, sleeting and 20 degrees outside and I just am in my living room and I lay on my couch and look up around at the lush tropical jungle around me, it's so nice and it does feel like a bit of a sanctuary. Like I know it's not probably not good for my back to work on my couch, but sometimes I'll go over to my couch just to be in the room with all the plants. But it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because yeah, those parts are calming, but also as I mentioned, I've had to like catch myself and be like, is this a love or is it an obsession? I want it to be more of a love. I don't want it to be like I'm coveting these rare special plants because then I think if it becomes actually an obsession, it's not healthy and it will just cause me more stress. And also I mean, I'm kind of joking, but every November-ish, after I bring the plants in the winter setting in, there's a period where everything will like slow down and die back a little. And every year I'm like, oh my God, it's the season of death. Like what plants are gonna fall victim? Every year I've gotten better at preventing that from happening, but there's certain plants where it's just a natural part of their life cycle. Like caladiums. I have no business having caladium. They're a total outside tropical, beautiful plant. But you can enjoy them in the spring and summer, but then you have to harvest the bulbs or just keep the soil really good. And then they'll come back, like they'll die in the winter and then they'll come back in the summer. But other things, it's just like, oh, they were enjoying bright light and high humidity outside. And now I'm telling them, nope, you're getting 10% humidity and we're getting like, I don't know, 8 hours of sunlight.
Mike, where can people find you?
That is a great question. So, as I said, I'm really not a social media person. I just don't really use it. I just kind of lurk and comment a little on Reddit, but I can share my LinkedIn. That's a good way to get a hold of me. My personal website is in a desperate need of being redone, so I will not share that. But aren't all of our personal websites desperately needing to be redone? But anyway, yeah, I'll share LinkedIn. I could share Instagram. You'll be very bored if you follow me. I don't really post, but sometimes I will post some plant stuff. Like, oh, last year I got I have a Hoya called a Compacta carnosa, aka Hindu rope. And Hoyas can be a little tricky to get to flower, but when they do, oh my God, it's stunning. I posted that a few times on Instagram. It's like these ball-shaped clusters of these really intricate, beautiful pink flowers. And it looks like green ropes with like big pink pom-pom balls attached to it. So yeah, maybe you'll get some cute plant photos. But yeah, you're not going to get much out of me from social media.
And that is totally fine.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I will jump at any opportunity to ramble on about plants.
This is all for this episode of Design Downtime. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I hope you enjoy your downtime.